You know that feeling you get when you're going down a path in your career, but you don't really like it, but you do it anyway because it's the path that everyone is telling you to take? Well, this video is addressing that very feeling. This video is about how I decided to live the life I wanted and how I stopped doing the things that I didn't like doing and the mistakes and challenges I learned along the way. Now remember, I'm not coming at this as an expert or some guru or anything. It's just me sharing my experience with this situation, but I'm sure me 6 months ago would have really liked to hear this information. So I'm putting it out there just in case anyone finds it useful. So let's start with a bit of a backstory because I feel like that's really important. I lived in my parents' house till I was around 18, and at that point I moved in with my partner's parents' house for a few years for work, which was in Sydney. After this, I actually decided to rent my own place, and while I was there I actually started to build a production company which made real estate videos, and this was my main focus for the next 2 years after starting that lease. So I started this company with my friend and it was super fun for a while, and the more that I went down that path, the more that I realized I do not want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I did exercises where what I did is expanded the timeline to 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, and asked myself, do I see myself doing the same thing as what I'm doing now in 5 years? And the answer was no. It just filled me with dread to even think about that. And you can call me young and naive or whatever, but I felt like I could do so much more, and then that all just didn't really happen. Now, the real estate work I would do would always make me stressed when I was working, and then that would leak into my personal life and every aspect of my life, and I'd just be constantly stressed. And I think something I realized probably too late for my own good is that if you're not passionate about something, you don't believe in something, when challenges inevitably come up, which they always do in everything you do, you don't overcome them. And this is what I kept running into while running the real estate company, which ultimately led to being stagnant. And being stagnant for so long led me to the question of, why am I doing this? I was making mediocre money, mediocre fulfillment, and just trying to find a way to get by before I could stop and then call myself a success. I was so reluctant to stop making real estate videos because I felt like my identity was caught up in this idea of success that I was chasing that was just unachievable because I didn't even want it. But again, I didn't realize it at the time. And what I think sealed the decision of wanting to quit that and stop that was a conversation I had with a friend where we actually talked about this idea that when you are passionate about something and you believe in something, that is when you're going to push past the challenges and overcome that and sort of build what you want. If that makes any sense, that is a bit vague. At this point, I was pretty done with the constant battles with myself, so I said, okay, if I don't see myself making real estate videos in 5 years, what do I want to do? What can I passionately commit to no matter what? So even if it didn't work for 5 years, what can I keep doing? And I wanted to really think about this and get it right. You know the quote, measure twice, cut once? I wanted to make sure that I picked something and I didn't change from it for the next 5 years. And this began a good few months of limbo where I was making real estate videos knowing full well that I wasn't going to be doing this for very long. And it's quite a question to deal with, to think, what do I want to do with my life? So getting back to the topic of this video, I wanted to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. So over the past few days, it's just been 2 vlogs with no real explanation why. So I tried to break it down and find what I am passionate about, what I like doing, and what I have fun doing. And I tried to find clues of things that I was naturally drawn to. My instant thought was looking back at videos and products that I previously made when I was a bit younger. So these are a few examples of some business I made. Excuse the cringe for some of them because I was pretty young, but you know, I feel like it does point to a good direction of what I kind of like doing. The first one is Offset. Offset is a yo-yo company which had the tagline of "Sense the difference." So cringe, but I was 14, so you can deal with the cringe. The next business I started was Tava, and this was a apparel company, but it had this idea of standing for underdogs, people that are sort of underrated in the calisthenics community. And I was drawn to the exact same style of thing building this brand. So here's a video I actually made for this brand as well.
What got me into calisthenics was an injury that occurred in 2013. Dislocated my right knee, ruptured ACL, MCL, PCL. I was in a wheelchair for a month and 4 months in crutches. At that time, I had to turn to calisthenics in order to get moving. It was a tough time, that 5-month period.
And then even looking outside of businesses that I've made, businesses that I really admire are things like Gymshark, Apple in some aspects, but they're businesses that stand for something more than what their products are. Now, mashing all that together and some current interests I had at the time, I created a business called Isle. It's a men's jewelry company, and it exists to show people who live unconventionally and travel. And the reason this was so in line with what I wanted to do is that I always had this dream of traveling the world and making some really, really nice videos. Probably because I was inspired by people who did the very same thing, but that's what I've always wanted to do. And I was like, this is the brand that represents people who live unconventionally and travel. So I felt like it was perfectly in line with what I wanted to do, to make videos of travel. The only thing is that this required a complete overhaul of my lifestyle and basically what I was doing. Like, I was making real estate videos in Sydney, and I had this bigger dream of traveling and making videos. Now, conveniently, I was going down a rabbit hole of Tim Ferriss' podcasts, and something that really stood out was Vagabonding. It's this book about the art of long-term travel and living minimally while traveling. And I saw that and I was like, that sounds like something I could do. That sounds like that's going to completely overhaul my life. So I talked to my partner and we were like, yep, we agreed on it. We both want to do that. We both want to travel. We both like adventure. So we agreed to just go. The only problem was we were in a 6-month lease. So we couldn't just up and go, which had its ups and downs, but at least we had somewhat of a plan. We were going to Vagabond, or more specifically, do van life. So that began the preparation. Now, like I said, we couldn't just up and leave because we were in a 6-month lease. We couldn't just leave because, we're running this business. We had things in Sydney that we couldn't just up and go. So instead, we used these 3 months until the lease ended to accomplish 4 things which I thought would be vital for this to work relatively smoothly. I knew that the production company had to come to a close. We had to close all the accounts of all our clients and legally close and everything. I know that I needed to set up the foundations of this new business, stuff like websites, having some products out, designing some products, stuff like that, just to get the ball rolling. 3, needed to figure out an income with this, which was very hard. And 4, needed to figure out the lifestyle that I want to live for the future. That's a bit of a bigger question, but I'll get to that at the end. So over the next 3 months, that's exactly what we did. There's probably no need to go into too much detail about this. I was making real estate videos, tried to build up some savings, launched a few products with Isle. We started getting the car ready to live in, and this took care of most of the preparation and left the one thing, the hardest thing to do, is make an income. But we didn't let it stop us because we really wanted to do it. And I think that's a good sign looking back. We went out and we started living in the car, exploring local areas first. And just in those first few weeks, we burned through way too much savings, eating out and just petrol and so many other expenses that we didn't expect. And we just thought, this cannot be sustainable how we're doing this right now. Which commenced this 2 months of stress headaches of how are we going to do this? How is this even going to be possible? And that was when my partner came up with a really good idea. We were at a market and she was like, there's no men's jewelry here. And I was like, that's true. So I went applying for markets and we got into some, and it was a really, really good way for the business to start making sales and start moving stock. And we were able to actually get quite a good amount of income to start off with. And I think more importantly is it showed me that this was possible, that people are willing to buy what I'm making and that it's a good product. And so all was really good with the markets, and we had this whole plan to work our way up Australia and around Australia, going to markets all over. But then we hit a roadblock, and that was the floods that happened in Australia. And these were like some of the worst floods I've ever seen.
State's flood emergency has taken another deadly turn, with a 10th victim lost to rising waters.
Flooding there was going to be at a major level, but that is peaking at around 10 metres there tonight.
Last night, the Nepean River peaked at 12.21 metres, and for the 3rd time in a matter of weeks, homes and businesses went under.
So people lost their houses all over New South Wales and entire suburbs were like just devastated, and there was just so many damages in New South Wales and Queensland. We didn't get affected basically at all apart from just rain, but what it did mean is that the markets that we planned on doing were all just cancelled. And this gave me the realization that markets are just short term. They're not the end goal for Isle. It's just going to be good to start getting an income so I can start marketing it properly. And during this period of rain, that's when I had this realization, and we were struggling for money again. I literally applied for jobs at burrito places. I applied for all the McDonald's in the area that we were at trying to get a job, hopefully being like transferred everywhere across Australia when we start traveling. And I actually had interviews lined up, and that's when I had the realization of this isn't the dream that we were supposed to be chasing. Our idea was to be traveling around and building this life that we're trying to have, not having the job which is worse than where we started. But I realized that even if we compromise a little bit now in the present moment and at least start chipping away at the direction we want to go in. So in the same week of applying for these jobs, I called up heaps of real estate companies to be a remote editor because I thought I am trained in this field. I've been training for this for like 2 years. Why not use my experience that I've been building as part of a way to do this? So I called up places, and surprisingly lots of places were willing to let me be an editor for them. And that's where we're at right now. And already just traveling and making videos and chasing this dream, it feels already a lot better than making real estate videos. And we're just barely getting started. Like we're only in, where are we right now? We're only in surfer's paradise, and it still feels better. But I think it brings it back to this whole idea of compromise, which I think is the most important lesson. But again, not a guru, but hopefully it helps. I quit real estate videos with the intention of never going back to that and selling jewelry at markets. But in reality, what worked the best was leveraging the skill that I developed over the past 2-3 years making real estate videos to do more of what I love. So I feel like as long as I'm shifting the scale bit by bit from doing more of what I like doing, then I feel like I'm on the right track, even if I have to do a little bit of some real estate videos every now and then. So I guess let's summarize this into some actionable steps to see if it helps. If it helps. Number one, ask yourself the question, do I have the feeling that I'm pursuing the wrong thing? That normally looks like a lack of motivation, resistance, and just boredom with what you're doing. Number two, what do you want to do? This is a really big question to tackle, but my best advice I can give is to actually look back at your past and find patterns in things that you are naturally drawn to before you had this idea that you have to make a living or uphold someone else's identity of yourself. For me, it was all these things that I did previously, like videos, running these product businesses and making them mean something really cool. That's what I think anyway. But remember, there isn't one answer that you're destined to do something or anything. I feel like there's lots of things that you can do, but again, that's my opinion. Number three is assess whether you can continue doing what you're doing to make money, but just try to shift that scale that we talked about, and instead of spending all of your time doing work that you hate, how can you shift that scale to spend more time on things that you like doing, and just spend that little bit amount of time just to get by. This is about trying to flip that scale so you can do more of what you love doing. But again, it's easier said than done, and it doesn't work for every job that you have or every way that you're making money. Number four is looking back at that scale, start scaling back what you don't like doing and try to fill that scale up with just what you like doing. I guess depending on what you like doing, it can take weeks or years to actually do this. Anyway, again, I'm not an expert, but this is just my opinion and my experience with this. Hope it helps, and I hope it was somewhat interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.